Hey all, it is I, Anthony the Canadian Guy, and welcome to Wrestlesode. Today I've got a special treat for all of you. I'm going to be interviewing one Chris Parish, an absolute veteran of the Alberta scene and one of the nicest people you'll ever get to know. When my father passed away a couple of years ago, Chris messaged me literally every day to make sure that I was doing okay, so I can't thank him enough for being the person that he is, and I can't wait to share this story with all of you. You guys, it was so much fun. We got to talk about all of his experience throughout Alberta. The guy's held championship gold everywhere. Like I said, he's a veteran of the scene and an absolutely wonderful person, so I can't wait for you to hear this here today. Now, it is May 3rd when this is coming out. Unfortunately, I am working night shifts once again, so there will be no live Wrestlesodes this week, but I do have good news for all of you. Starting next Tuesday, May 10th, I will be interviewing one RCW Women's Champion, Ava Lawless. You guys can go check the socials. I announced these all yesterday, so you can take a look there. On May 10th, we'll be interviewing Ava Lawless. On May 17th, we'll be interviewing Cutthroat Colton Kelly, and then on the 24th of the month of May 24th, we'll be interviewing TJ Cannon. I had to look down at the dates to make sure I was doing that all correctly, but that's going to be really fun. I have 3 interviews lined up that are going to be live over the next couple of weeks here in May, so I hope that we'll be able to see you over on Twitch to take a look at all of those. But enough about that here today. We will be getting into our interview here with Chris Parish very shortly, but before I do, I just want to say, if you guys like what you see here on Wrestlesode or here on the Canadian Wrestling Archive, remember to hit that subscribe button and hit the like button down below, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. And if you guys would like to see me interview anybody in specific, don't forget to leave a name down below in the comments section, and we'll definitely engage with that, and we'll get you your interviews that you would like to see. So anyways, let's go and chat with Chris Parish. Chris, dude, thank you so much for joining me here today. First up, how you been? Man, we haven't really chatted in 2 years, so that's my fault, but how you been, man?
I've been well, busy. It's nobody's fault. It's the COVID times. They kind of mess with everyone.
Oh, yeah, that's for damn sure. But I'm glad that you've been keeping busy. I'm doing good, man. I lost a bunch of weight, but I lost myself for a little bit there. I stopped talking to people, but I'm glad to be back with Wrestlesode. It's always fun to be able to share wrestling with people and the love of wrestling. And now that also on Friday that I'm going back to my first show for the first time in forever, I'm so excited. So it'll be so good again. You're wrestling this week too, right?
Yeah, I'm wrestling this Saturday and this Sunday.
Oh, geez, you're wrestling both. Where you wrestling this Sunday?
This Saturday is the Power Rumble for Pure Power Wrestling.
Perfect.
And then I'm back in Edmonton on Sunday for real Canadian wrestling, and I'm wrestling one Michael Richard Blaze.
Holy, all right. Well, there's some years of experience in the Alberta ring right there. So I've been talking about that. So first up, how long have you been wrestling? Because I always like to say that you're definitely one of the veterans around here in the Alberta scene. So how long has it been?
Well, on my gear, it says since 2004, and that's kind of when I started consistently going.
Right.
So, 2004.
Yeah, that's 16, 18 years. That's a long time. So what made you get started in wrestling? I obviously, I'm kind of jumping around because you're a friend of mine and I'm so I'm just so excited to chat with you, but I got to be somewhat professional. So let's pull this back. What made you fall in love with wrestling, buddy? you grew up, where'd you grow up? What made wrestling something super important in your life?
Well, I've always, about a year and a half, I've always been in St. Albert. Just outside of Edmonton, Alberta. I've always loved watching wrestling. I know my brother used to be a huge Ultimate Warrior fan, and I wasn't really into him as much. I was more, if I was to watch it around him, I was more Macho Man. But I kind of started really watching it when Shawn Michaels was kind of just breaking up with Marty Jannetty. He was by far the guy that kind of turned me into liking pro wrestling and wanting to watch it all the time. And then, I don't know, pretty much ever since I was 9 years old, I either wanted to be the Intercontinental Champion or the captain of the Oilers. So, I kind of just ended up turning into pro wrestling because I got kind of bored with hockey when I was 16, 17. So I decided to give wrestling a shot and saw not really a trial, but a 2-day trial kind of thing with Monster Pro Wrestling. Gave that a shot. I think I was 17 at the time. And then, I started training with them just shortly after that.
Oh, so man, that's freaking awesome. So a lot of people that I've actually spoken to, especially from the Edmonton area, Monster Pro Wrestling really seems to be the kind of like the start for you, like those like 2-day boot camps. They really kind of got you hooked, hey?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of the only thing I knew of back then. And then I went to one of their shows, um, and that was kind of the first time I ever saw local indie wrestling. And then that kind of opens you up to, the PWAs, and then obviously later the RCWs. Like I knew of the Stampedes before, but other than that, like you don't know much of the local scene because it's not something you think about. You're kind of just watching the WWF, now WWE at the time, and then you're kind of like, okay, that's kind of what it is. And then you buy some magazines, whether it was a WWF magazine or then you're getting, just the PWIs and all that. And then you see that there's other companies, like whether there's New Japan and all this other stuff, WCW, the big one, which I don't think we got on television until about the 98, 99. So, I mean.
So would you say you grew up more like a WCW kid or a WWF kid?
Oh, I've always been a WWF guy.
Yeah.
However, when Shawn Michaels, got hurt and he left WWF after the match with Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14, I believe, I was kind of like lost in like who's my guy now, because I've only had the one guy. Like I loved Owen Hart more than I loved Bret. So people can always say like whose side are you on? I was always on Shawn Michaels' side, but I was always an Owen guy over Bret because I am the youngest of my family. I am the little brother, so I related more to Owen. And WrestleMania 10 was really that event that kind of made me like Owen. But when Michaels left, I kind of needed a new guy, and then that's when WCW kind of started, going on TV in my area. And then I saw Sting, and I was a big fan of just this character because I was a really big fan of The Crow. Like I just really liked that movie. So I just like, oh, this is like The Crow, but in wrestling, and he's way better than the actual Crow. And then there's Jericho, and Jericho is the only guy that, always seemed to be the bad guy that never joined the NWO. So I always liked that. And then he always had the funny backstage segments where he got lost in the ring, or he knew 1,004 holds, which I think 1,000 of them was arm bars. So just really entertaining things. And that's kind of what drew me into those two characters. So, but at the end of the day, I enjoyed wrestling. Like the cruiserweights were always fun to watch. But I mean, at the end of the day, I was always a WWF guy. I mean, come on. I mean, they were clearly better.
I was a WWF kid as well. I mean, I had my exposure to both of them, and there was people in WCW I liked that I would go, oh man, these people are great. I wish they were in the WWF, because that's what I watched, and that's where my allegiance was myself. So, but when did you start going from something like a WWF, and when did you branch out to beyond like WCW to more of the New Japans, maybe like the Lucha World stuff out of the UK, things like that? Like, when did you start branching off and be like, oh, I want to find out more of this stuff?
Well, I would think the one that I branched off the most was Ring of Honor. And this was right when they were kind of picking up. So back when, Low Key, who was their first champion, then Xavier, and then Samoa Joe. And this is before when Samoa Joe was just not who we knew of like today, right? He still wore pants, which was kind of weird to think about.
Much more svelte at the time too.
Yeah. So that was kind of like my branching out, but that's, when I started training and becoming a wrestler, that's when I kind of started understanding that there's more stuff out there, and you kind of just wanted to find as much as humanly possible. And then with the internet, like it's pretty easy to just see anything, right? So, I mean, you kind of just search. You're a kid.
Yeah, you just want to find some stuff. And then that's how you stumble.
You're able to find anything in porn, you're able to find anything in wrestling.
There you go. Well, so you said you were about 17 when you started training with MPW then. So were you just like, I'm just going on Google, I'm just be like, train to be a wrestler? Like, how did that, like, when was that switch in your head when you were like, okay, I got to do more than just watch this. I really like hockey, but, I got to try to be a wrestler. Like, I got to practice.
No, it was actually a buddy of mine who saw like a flyer that they were doing this mini camp. And he's like, oh, we got to do this. And then the days lined up where I think it was in the summer. So obviously I wasn't playing hockey. I also played lacrosse when I was a kid. So it didn't really conflict with any of that. So yeah. So I went there and obviously like I just saw that somebody asked me who my trainer was on a question, so I won't say it now just so we can actually get to it. But yeah, so we went there and then we had 2 days there. And, a bunch of guys were just like amazing there. And then obviously it was one of those things where it just hooked me instantly. So it was a very easy transition from thinking I wanted to play hockey to wanting to wrestle, because I had played hockey for so long and honestly kind of dealt with the politics of hockey and didn't really enjoy that aspect as much. So I was the very fresh kid that went into wrestling not understanding that the politics in pro wrestling could be way worse.
Yes, well, that's all things we've heard, especially more on the indie scenes. You can hear what that kind of thing is like. But you've been around here for a long time. You've probably worked pretty much inside of every promotion that Alberta has had, pretty much, I assume, right?
Except for PWA, I've never actually wrestled there.
There's a call out. There you go. There's a call out. We got to get some Chris Parish inside PWA, assuming you want to wrestle inside PWA, of course. Well, it's the last one on your list. You got to hit that one, right? I suppose, right?
I mean, I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say it has to be done.
There you
I'm
go.
going to say,
hey,
something
listen,
that
everybody
has
out
never
there.
been done. Just saying.
I'm just saying, if I was in the crowd of a PWA show and For Whom the Bell Tolls started to go on, I would pop. I remember, and I'm going to say this.
Don't use that.
You don't use it anymore? Which song do you use these days?
I switched to the Marilyn Manson Personal Jesus.
Awesome. Well, that's not a bad switch at all.
But here's some cool news though for you. I'm in talks with probably the GOAT of wrestling theme music, Jim Johnson, about getting some custom music made.
Are you serious?
For which Personal Jesus and For Whom the Bell Tolls are the two that I'm kind of looking at. Okay, this is what I've used. Let's see what we can do.
Okay, first up, that's fucking awesome. That's so cool. That I can't believe you're in touch with him or in contact with him. That's great. But yes, you can also answer these questions that people do ahead of time. And for anybody who's in chat, because I didn't explain it, if you have a question that you want to ask for Chris, there is a little redeemable reward that you can do inside of chat to ask a question. We'll get to the Q&A towards the end.
You can ask me anything, by the way.
Yeah.
I will not shine away from it.
Parish is an open book, as we've always said. But I want to tell this story because this was pretty cool. I went to, in my only experience going down to Lethbridge for PPW was during the Power Rumble in 2020. So 2 years ago, just before the world shut down and everything kind of sucked. That was like the last show I went to. And you were in the Power Rumble that year, and I did not know you were going to be in the Power Rumble, and we were still really good friends at the time. I remember being in the audience, and I heard For Whom the Bell Toll go off, and I just lost my mind. I was so happy. I popped so loud because I didn't know you were going to be there. I was like so excited. I was like, yes, Parish is here.
Well, I think that was my first match back since I lost the championship there. So like, yeah, it's been a while, and it was kind of like, and I always hated this because this was the same year Edge came back, and I think he did it right before, because I believe this was like maybe a week or two shy of just after the Edge came back. And I was like, yeah, like everything that you thought like was cool about Edge, I was like, bring it down, maybe put like an indie sized version of that. That's what I was thinking. And I was like, pretty cool, because like you still don't know until you go out there if the people care or not. So it was pretty nice that they clearly did. So it was a very humbling and like very cool, because like you got goosebumps. And I remember Bryn Watt telling me, he's like, yeah, that was the first time I even got goosebumps with that reaction. So that was really cool.
It was a very loud pop. I remember I was kind of sitting in like the back corner, like the entrance was like to my left, and I was like hiding in the corner, but the entire room just exploded when your music went off. It was super awesome. Especially because I didn't know you were gonna be there.
Yeah, and I told no one too, so that was the cool part.
So now you've been wrestling recently in RCW especially, and you've become one half of the tag team champions alongside Son of Irish, who I think is such a young prodigy in the wrestling world, like super amazing talent. How has that been tagging with Son of Irish?
Oh, Well, the honest story is that's exactly why I went to RCW. So a lot of people don't know this, but I've known that kid his entire life. And I had his first match when he was 13, and it was actually by request of the family that I was the guy to be the first match. So that was a very, again, humbling thing to have, very trustworthy. But a lot of people don't realize that the Irishman and I go way back as well. In fact, he was part of my wedding party, and that's how close we are. Um, the amounts of kilometers or like him and I have driven, whether it's back and forth to say Lethbridge or just any other place, has been, you know, I mean, we can collect a lot of rewards, and we do, but yeah, so that was pretty cool. And I just kind of looked at my kind of where I was, and I said, it would be really cool if I could take everything I've done and maybe try to help elevate him. And it just seems like it actually was a weird coincidence that it actually worked out really well, and we seem to gel pretty well. And I don't think I would have ever thought I would have had instant chemistry that I had since I tagged with Maniac, because that was very rare. So the fact that I have it with Son of Irish, I think it's pretty cool, and just being able to kind of do do that with a kid that I've known for so long, and just do that with someone who honestly feels like a the little brother I don't have. Like it's really cool to see. So, and the fact that he is 17, he's going to be 18 next month. So I'm tagging with a kid that's half my age.
I mean, and what's really awesome about that is because, like, a lot of second generation wrestlers, like Son of Irish has been in the ring for a long time, right? Like, I mean, you just said, like, he's turning 18, but even in 2019, he had my indie match of the year, which I've said a couple of different times with Michael Allen and Richard Clark at Clandestine, which was such a phenomenal match, in my opinion. Those two put on a clinic. And to think that he was like 15 at the time, like that just blows my mind. So working with him, so you guys won the tag team championships. How did that come about? Like you guys work together. I guess the dynamic is kind of like big brother, little brother, look out for each other kind of thing.
Yeah, and I kind of, in a way, kind of just doesn't even feel like a big brother, little brother, but that's exactly what it is, though. Um, so it's really cool in that aspect, and it's kind of rejuvenated a lot of things about me, because like I'm 35, I'm going to be 36 again next month. So the fact that I'm kind of getting a whole different kind of energy just has a lot to really show you what kind of an athlete Son of Irish really is. So I think a lot of his capability and his potential. So the fact that him and I are just almost like two peas in a pod, like that's pretty cool. But at the same time, it's very nice to be able to kind of just be there to help him, and just kind of be there to make sure that he's guided the right way, because his dad now works out of town a lot more. He's not really involved in the wrestling as much as he can. So I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you got to look out for family, and that's exactly how I feel about that, because that's exactly what he is to me. He's family.
That's so cool. So how did you guys win the championships? Like, which team did you take the championships off of?
We actually took it off the Viking Rage, which was Vince Austin and Tyrone Ironside. It was a fatal four-way elimination match, which also had Big Cat Rescue, Steven Styles, and Kato. And then also had trying to remember because he was by himself. It had I remember his real name. I'm trying to.
Isn't that kind of like in the back? Sometimes you're just like, "What's your real name?" or "What's your kayfabe name again?"
So weird too, because I've known him for so long as well. Yeah, Colton Kelly. Thank you, Omen. But like I've known him for so long as well, and like now like we finally got to wrestle, and I remember pulling him aside a couple years back, like I want to say maybe 2018, just after PWA, and I've I just wanted to tell him, man, like, you have grown so much, and you have so much potential, and you like just keep going. Like, I would love to one day work with you. And then now it's, like, we get to, and it's just weird to be the old guy in a way. But it's also nice to kind of have that, because, man, there's so many good young workers just in the Edmonton area. And that's not even, like, we haven't even talked about Lethbridge yet. And there's a lot out there as well that nobody seems to talk about, and they should, because PPW is one of the best Alberta professional wrestling scene or companies out there.
Oh, for sure. I remember I fell in love with the product the very first time I saw it, and even since then I will watch PPW products. We got to team with PPW to do the Southern Alberta Invitational back in 2020 as well, which was super awesome. Like, I couldn't say enough great stuff about PPW, honestly. They're freaking phenomenal down there. And I want to go down there for a chess tournament in April. I'm hoping that it kind of correlates with the same kind of weekend that they're hosting a show, because I would totally go to both. That's what I'm really hoping for. Now, so my next question here for you. So, like I said, you have been in wrestling. You said you started in 2004, you said, was like really your first kind of like dip into the water. So you've been wrestling for a long time. Have you had a favorite match or something that really sticks out in your history, or like that was like the moment I became like officially a wrestler? Like that was so smooth. Like, do you have one of those situations in your past?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely moments that just stand out. Like, I remember, winning my first title, like just having my first match. Like, I'll never forget having my first match. And this was a real eye-opener for me, because a kid came up to me and asked me for my autograph, and I was so blown away by this. Because at this point, I'm just an 18-year-old kid. Like, I just had a wrestling match. Like, I'm nobody, right? Like, and this kid's asking me for my autograph, and I was like, why? He's like, because you were in the ring. And I was like, okay. And like, I didn't even know what to do for an autograph. But it was the first time where I'm like, you know what? Like, I totally forgot that fans look at you as larger than life, especially the kids. So again, like, it kept me pretty down to earth with that, and I don't forget that. But then also, like, winning my first title was always cool, despite the fact I think I was like the sixth person in line to win the title, and just everything went wrong in that show to the point where, like, okay, you're winning, and I was like, yeah. And I think I lost at the very next show, but whatever, I got a title.
What was your very first? What was the title?
It was now looked at as the provincial title for MPW.
The thing that Blake Cannon is destroying with his face on it. I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, so I just get to make fun of him constantly.
So I think I'm like, well, you know what? Like, he say what he wants, but until he's a 5-time provincial champion, I think I own that record.
Are you a five-time?
I'm a five-time
provincial champion.
So, simply because, like, they're like, why put the main title on Parish? That would be just a good idea. Let's not do that. But I mean, nonetheless, Blake definitely deserves it. That kid works really hard.
Oh, I like to give him a hard time, but that's kind of like that same thing where I feel like because we come from like the same small town, and I bother him a lot.
I mean, he has
He's
very
like
bad taste in hockey teams.
Well, I think he's got a pretty good taste in hockey teams, so I'll just say that. But I think that's the only thing he has a good taste in.
See, like, when I go to, like, my team's rank, like, they have a lot of championship banners, and when you go to yours, they only have one, so it's kind of boring.
That's true. We're very, but to be fair, we still have more than Vancouver.
It only has one thing in it.
See, I used to go to Vancouver games when I lived in Vancouver, and I'd have to look up at nothing. So that's there.
Although the one cool thing about Vancouver's arena that I have to give them a shout out for is that they promote their hockey team way better than anybody. Because even on the beer cups, they got like the Vancouver Canucks, they got their arena name on, and they just do a good way of just like plugging their stuff.
All year round, just outside GM Place, there is pictures of the Canucks. I used to take the SkyTrain every day, and not only that, their SkyTrain is right at the station. Like, they play right at the station. It's so convenient.
Rogers Arena now, aren't they?
Whatever they're called these days. Yeah. I'm old school. I call it GM Place, or it was still Rogers Arena back then, but GM Place was beside Rogers Arena, and that's where the Olympics were. Whatever. It's all what it was. So what about moving forward? So like we talked a little bit about your past with wrestling. You're still wrestling these days. Obviously, you said you started wrestling back in 2004, but there's still a lot of Chris Parish left. So what is some things that Chris Parish hasn't done that Chris Parish wants to do?
I want to be in a cage match.
Yeah?
That is something that I want to be on a cage match, and I want to dive off the cage. Like, that's still something I want to do. I'm glad my wife's in bed because she's like, you're such a moron, probably. But yeah, like it's, I mean, it's a lot of that. Like, I've been in 14 ladder matches, and man, like, I just want to do something different, right? Like, I want to try new things. That's like when you were talking about the clandestine. I remember being asked, it's like, hey, what do you think about doing a show? Or, yeah, I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. We'll put you with Cody Chimera. Yeah, cool. Like, that's awesome because that's something I've never want to do. I have a lot of good things to say about him. And then he was like, hey, man, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, let's just do your shtick. Let's try that out. And it was fun just being different for once. So at this point, if I'm able to try something new and do something different, then I'm more eyes open about that because it's fun to kind of just challenge yourself. But to also answer the one question I didn't about what my favorite match was, the best answer is it's going to be the next one, so come check it out.
So this Saturday, then this Sunday.
Yeah.
Both of them are the next best matches.
But I mean, the initial match I had with Michael Richard Blaze is going to always stand up there. I had a wicked match, a 2 out of 3 falls match with Diablo for the provincial title. The time I won the PPW heavyweight title was really cool. So, I mean, like, I put those up. Like, I don't think I have a favorite match, but again, like, I have moments. But, I mean, Jack Pride, like, I remember we did a title versus hair match, and, I mean, we just had the people in the palm of our hands. So, I mean, that's storytelling. And if we can get people on a good story, that was really cool.
That's awesome. Well, that's really great to hear. And I also really love when you were talking about how, like, some of your favorite things these days are, especially when you went over to RCWs working with some of the younger talent and being able to help kind of grow them because there's so much great talent around the Alberta scene that's just like untapped potential with like so much future ahead of some of them. But one of the things I want to talk about, because you've been in the scene for such a long time, you've seen the growth and development of so many different wrestlers around here, people who, like, you know, have gone on and done really well stuff, and people that you stepped in the ring with, and people who don't wrestle anymore, right? Mm-hmm. When you look back in your vast history of the Alberta scene, who is the best wrestler, in your opinion, to never make it? And I will say it like this. I think MRB and heavy metal, they haven't made it in the sense that they've made it to the big times, but in terms of the Alberta scene, like, those are two names that like become synonymous with Alberta wrestling. So I consider them people who kind of made it. So who is the best person, in your opinion, to never make it?
Kyle Sebastian, Bobby Sharp.
Two great answers. Man, fantastic choices. I can agree with both of those. I think
Kyle Sebastian is so vastly underrated because nobody gets... Outside of Lethbridge, not a lot of people watch PPWs. And that guy is so good on so many levels. Sidney Steele as well. Like, if you want to talk about guys that have gone from one spectrum and are just completely different now, Sidney Steele might be that guy. That guy has grown so much. And I was actually just watching a match where it was him and I against Deathwish and Diablo from PPW. Man, he is so much different now. But, I mean, Kyle Sebastian, just from a psychology standpoint, just from a technical standpoint, just being able to go out there, no matter the situation, and he could put out a 5-star match just because he's that naturally talented. I mean, he does not get the credit he deserves, and I just think Bobby Sharp is one of the best guys I've ever been in the ring with. Talk about guys that challenge you. He can definitely challenge you, and again, like, I don't know if he gets the credit for his range as much, because he has definitely opened up his ability of what he can do. Like, if you didn't get to see the stuff he did with his wife, Kat Von Hees, in PWA just before the lockout, it was some of the most entertaining things I've ever seen in my life.
No, for sure. I really like Bobby Sharp. And I think some of the best things that he did, especially when I started watching PWA, he was doing slightly more comedy stuff at the time. And that's kind of how I got introduced to him. But when I had to go back and watch some videos of Bobby Sharp, I was like, oh, holy crap, this guy can go. Like, he can really go. But, like, when I was first introduced to him, it was, like, pure comedy, which I thought was fantastic because I love comedy wrestling. But when I went back, I was like, oh, this guy's got range. I love this guy. And I can also agree with what you said about Kyle Sebastian, because when I went down to PPW, I really didn't have much of any knowledge of Kyle Sebastian, and he definitely blew me away. And I understand what you mean by, like, it doesn't really matter the situation. The guy is phenomenal. I love watching that guy wrestle. So, great choice.
And, like, not a lot of people know that he actually went to Japan, and he got invited out to go to Japan to wrestle. And, like, that's just something that people don't really ever talk about or ever say, because it wasn't so monumental. Whereas with somebody like MRB, like, we know that he did the stuff in NXT and 205 Live because it's a lot more current and it's a lot more recent. So it's really, trust me, I will never take anything away from MRB. That guy is phenomenal and he deserves everything. Same with heavy metal. That guy is a workhorse, and the way he's transformed himself in the last year and a half.
Absolute body transformation. I just want to put that out there. That's insane.
So those two guys are the pillar of the Alberta wrestling scene right now. However, there's also another pillar in Lethbridge named Kyle Sebastian, and another pillar out there named Sydney Steele. And you're talking about them in Can-Am. Sydney Steele and Sean Martins are known as the brand. They're tag champions. So, yeah, they'll be there.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. Especially because I can just drink and just go walk from my house. It happens so little in my small town. I really don't expect there to be a huge audience, but I'm going to go. I'm going to be loud. I'm bringing my Tasty Travis Cole signs so that we can boo him or whatever. I'll see depending what he is. But I'm super excited. Now we've been going here for like 35 minutes already. It's been going crazy fast. So we're going to slowly start transitioning into the Q&A section. So if you want to start getting questions ready. But one of the questions I did want to start with, which was one of the questions that was asked earlier, was about your trainers at MPW. So who do you consider to be your trainer and trained you at MPW? Or if it was an MPW that you consider as your trainer, kind of a thing.
I mean, Massive Damage, Sean Dunster was by far the main guy. However, the thing about MPW is it's always a collection of people. Like, so it's never just one person. Like, I remember Ace Davidson just having me talking to me about like selling and those things, and then talking to like Brady Roberts, and he's just like talking to me about psychology, and then Bobby Sharp, who's been so influential in my growth when I was young. And I really credit him a lot with, coming just a kid in the ring to actually finding himself in the ring. I think I give Bobby a lot of that stuff. But then there's also a guy and God rest his soul, a guy by the name of Lou Gage that I don't think a lot of people know, but like he was kind of the guy who's like very similar in size with me, and I can relate with him and relate with the way he works, because I mean, it's hard for a guy my size to relate to guys that are 6'4" or 6'5" when they're just doing all power moves, and I'm the guy who's going to get tossed around. So if you were at the RCW show just last week, you saw Giant Orion toss me around. So I mean, it's just a thing where you always you're always going to relate and kind of learn a lot with the guys that are like you. But with that being said, like, I learned a lot from those guys. I learned a lot from Michelle Starr and Kevin Jeffries out of BC. Vance Nevada taught me a lot about just the inner parts of wrestling. So, like, Massive Damage, I'll always say he was the guy that introduced me into professional wrestling, and I will never, ever deny what he's done for me, and I will always be appreciative and thankful for that. But you can't just pinpoint one guy on who taught you professional wrestling. It's always been a collection of so many people. And it's always one of those things that no matter how long you're in wrestling, you're always getting taught. You're always learning. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I definitely think that makes sense, especially a lot of the people who especially trained in MPW. They've all said the same things. They're like, everybody there, it was like a family of like people, like everybody helped train everybody. It wasn't really just like one person leading. It was just whoever was in the ring at that moment, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Like, even like to this day, like I get challenged on so many things by, wrestling different people. And like a guy like Little Blaze and Orion, who just like came out of Mexico, and you're kind of learning stuff that they're doing currently in Mexico. And Lil Blade just wrestled like 2 days later in Big Lucha. So it's pretty wild to know that, hey man, like I was just in the ring with this guy, and like this is where he is. Again, like I mentioned Kyle Sebastian, and he was in Noah. So you're learning stuff that he's learned there. And then MRB, I mean, he was in NXT and 205 Live, and whenever he wants to, he just calls TJ Wilson up and like gets advice from him, and he passes that on to people. So, I mean, it's pretty cool to just get a collection of information from everyone and then being able to kind of put it in your puzzle.
Awesome. All right, next question here. This one came from Shout. What is Chris drinking tonight? Looks like a possible tasty can.
Yeah, I'm drinking a nice little 1929 Kolsch. It is a beer. It is proudly brewed in Edmonton, so yeah, just a nice little craft beer.
That actually brings me to another story I have. I feel like I have so many stories with Chris Parish because, like, you were the first person. When I got into the world of wrestling, broadcasting, and all that kind of stuff, and I was invited up to Clandestine for the very first time, the night before Clandestine, Chris Parish invites me. Yeah, so Chris Parish invites me out to a hockey game. There was you and Spencer were there, and we went and we enjoyed a few drinks, and you gave me my first few drinks. It was such a nice thing. I always want to say thank you for that. I always say that your hospitality is super nice. Whenever people ask about Chris Parish, he's like the nicest guy.
And despite what people will tell you, like, I'm a people guy. I like to be social.
That's what it is. I mean, like, outwardly people can have one thing, but when you get to know somebody and you know their true character, like I even said before the stream, when my dad died, you'd message me like every day for like a month to make sure I was okay. That's true character right there. And yeah. I remember that shit.
It's so weird too, because like even like when I was in Love Wrestling, like a lot of people would be like, you're kind of like HR in a way, because you're always talking to people, and I'm like, if I'm HR, there's something wrong. But at the same time, like the way I look at it, like the first step to HR is actually caring about people, and that like I do. So
there you go. Well, that's why I always say you're like a great, but you're just like super nice and hospitable.
Just the most inappropriate and immature HR guy you'll ever know.
I think that's what makes you a successful HR guy, in my opinion.
Like,
all right,
you're like, oh, I got a problem. Like, I just don't know if I fit in. I'm like, yeah, that's what she said.
You're like,
I'm pretty sure I said that to you.
You did literally say that to me earlier today too. We answered this question, but let's try to do this one from Mike the Ref. Yeah. Mr. Parish, your campaign has the momentum of a runaway freight train. What makes you so popular?
I think the fact that I care about every little detail I do. Like, I care about the people that come to the shows. Like, I make them always feel a part of the show. Like, I always remember reading Goldust's book, and he said like one of his challenges was to always find the person who's least invested in the match or just in the show when he was out, and by the end of the match to make them the most invested. And then I kind of mixed that in with a moment that I had in Lethbridge, where I had a moment with a little girl who was battling, I think, with cancer at the time, and it was just fun to, make her day, kind of a thing. And I was the champion at the time, and I think she had a son that says, "You're my favorite wrestler." And I said, "Well, you're my favorite wrestler." So I threw the title on her shoulder, picked her up, and celebrated with the crowd. And I remember the dad just taking a photo and just almost crying. And I think stuff like that, like, just is so important, like making sure that everyone actually enjoys their night, having fun with everything you do, making sure that everything I do when I'm in the ring, like, people will want to take that away. Like, I don't know, like we have a chance to really make an impact in people's life, because I've always looked at wrestling as something that takes you away from the real world, whether it's for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a couple hours. Like, that's how I always looked at wrestling. So if you're having like the worst day, but you go to a wrestling show, and for that 12 to 15 minutes that I'm in the ring, you're able to find some sort of emotion that's not, I want to do this, or I hate this, like, and you're able to feel something else. I think that's really cool. And I don't think you really notice that until you get older. You realize, like, how important that stuff is, because it's really cool just to be able to have that connection. And I think, like, I'm very big on connecting with the audience. So I think the fact that the people care, I think that allows me to have that. Like, I don't think I'd be able to be momentous if I didn't have a following. So I really, like, you got to really thank the people that care about you before I say, like, I care about that stuff.
For sure. And I gotta say, like, losing yourself in wrestling is one of the greatest things. Like, I didn't understand how great an independent wrestling show could be until I went to my first one in 2016, and I was blown away just by how good of a time was. Like, if you go into a show and you want to have a good time, it's very hard not to. Honestly, like, you can easily get lost in that, and I just fucking love it. I love wrestling. It's so fun. I've never been on the other side of the ropes, but even from being in the crowd, it's one of the greatest experiences when you got a hot crowd.
Yeah. So here's the little story, though. So I had a bet with Jude Dawkins because he was a huge baby face, a good guy in MPW.
Right.
And we'd always go to, like, Lethbridge, where at one point I was a big bad guy. And then I flipped and became a good guy. And I then later flipped and became a good guy in Edmonton, too. And I told him, I'm like, I'm going to get more people to take a photo of me and want to buy your shirt in this intermission. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, watch this. So the beauty is that I have a championship. And if you're a fan, especially a kid, and you walk up to a professional wrestler asking if, like, you want to have an autograph, take a picture, what's really the one thing you actually want to do?
You want to be acknowledged by the wrestler as being as cool as them.
But you also want to touch that championship.
Or that, yeah, for sure. If you've got the championship, for sure.
So my thing is, it's like, if anybody asks me, it's like, hey, can I have a photo? It's always a yes. But my thing is, like, okay, but I got to do my super cool pose. And here's the thing. I have no super cool pose. It's just me.
Just doing some pose.
But the whole idea is, they're like, okay, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, yeah, but I need you to do something for me. And they're like, oh, what's that? I'm like, you got to hold this. And then I hand them the championship. And boom. Eyes are open, they're shocked. It's the best thing ever. Other people will see that, they come in, and then Drew just looks at me and he's like, you son of a bitch.
He's like, you knew what to do.
You.
So you won that day is what you're trying to say, right?
Oh yeah,
that's amazing. Hey, we just got a raid from Love Wrestling, dude. Thank you so much for that. Well, I guess I saw that they were on. I was like, oh, we'll go raid them after, but we'll switch it around today. Thank you guys for the raid. Thank you so much. Next quick question here. Actually, this question relates to a question I wanted to ask you and then forgot halfway through our conversation because I'm super unprofessional. But this question
was Astrid too, who's just a sweetheart. So thank you, Astrid.
Thank you, Astrid. There you go. I don't actually know Astrid. I feel bad. I got to go and introduce myself. I'm horrible. This question here from David from Wrestling Rodeo. Anyone else from your training class still wrestling? And I'm going to add this caveat to that. Is your friend that you went to that weekend training course with still wrestling?
No. So the funny thing was that he started training before I did because he was like, we were both 17. So, excuse me. He had good grades. I had grades.
You had them, at least.
Yeah, they
were there.
They were letters.
They didn't start with the first couple letters of the alphabet, but they were there.
Yeah. So, and then I was also playing hockey, lacrosse, and my parents were like, well, if you did this, there's no way you would focus. And I was like, no, I mean, this is what I would want to do. Of course I'll focus. And then you're trying to lie, you're trying to work, but then, yeah, no, they saw right through it. And you had to get parental acceptance
at that time.
And get them to sign for that if you're not 18. And they just wouldn't sign for me. They'd sign for him. So by the time I was able to go there, and I actually finished high school, and then I'm like, okay, I did this, so I'll do this. So by the time I got there, he left. So no. In my training class, like, well, actually, the ones before mine, I mean, you saw Big Jess Youngblood and Heavy Metal.
They were right before you?
They were right before me.
Holy, great
So,
talent! I love both those guys.
Bobby Sharp was also right before me. Bobby Sharp like wrestled when he was like 14. Like it's insane. Um,
I was gonna be
Also,
like, I thought he was younger than I am, but
yeah, no, I think just a few years younger than me. But yeah, no, I mean, from my training class, I mean, no, I mean, Tom McDonald was in my training class, and now he raps. So that's about it.
there you go. You're the lone survivor of your training class, then. Hey, but then you've also stuck around this. Like, there's been a lot of training classes. I'm sure a lot of people who haven't stuck around. So,
Oh yeah.
and as you've stuck around, you've made yourself, like I said, here in the Alberta scene. Like, there's one promotion you haven't wrestled for, which is insane. Here's another question from Mike the Ref. How did it feel being part of the original Breaking of the Forbidden Door with your feuds with MRB and Pride in 2019?
Yeah, that was. I mean, when we were talking about moments, yeah, this was kind of one of the cool moments because I remember this being like kayfabe, as kayfabe can be. Um, I don't know how many people knew in the back, but I knew obviously when I got there and whatnot. Like, obviously the boys knew at the time. But I just thought it was such a cool dynamic because when you really look at that, that was me and MPW guy, that was Pride and RCW guy, and that was MRB a PWA guy. So that was all three companies being represented. However, we also saw the CWC Alberta title that Pride had. You also saw the PPW title that I had at the time. So you're actually seeing 5 different professional wrestling companies in Alberta being represented
In one match. Yeah.
So I thought that was just really cool. Now that idea never really came to fruition as much as I would hoped, just because I mean the payoff, we could never have done it in Edmonton because our actual promotions would never allow us to do that, which is really the shame of everything. But the fact that, like Mike said, like that was the forbidden door here in Alberta, I think is really cool. And I think that's one of the moments that if you're able to be there and understand the volume of that, like that was, I think, really cool. And it was actually an idea that I had that I thought, hey, if we can do something like this, and those were the exact guys I'd want to do it with, I mean, just think about if that happened today, like how cool would that be? I mean, the people would probably change. I probably would not be a part of that. I'm sure you'd get somebody better, but I mean, it would be absolutely amazing.
Oh, for sure. I always say that, like, one of my favorite things in wrestling was the invasion angle, but one of my least favorite things that happened was the invasion angle, just because of how it was executed. But the thought of having that, like, multi-promotion battle, having people step up, and just knowing the severity of that, just knowing that these people don't get to tangle, and this is a rare occasion, that is so cool to me, and I always love that. I hate the backstage politics, unfortunately, that seem to be rampant in independent wrestling, but as is the case, unfortunately, in certain places. When will we see the return of Stevie Saint? There's another fun question.
Um,
You might want
I
to give
don't
some
know.
background to who Stevie Saint is for the
So-
people who don't know.
If you would allow me 5 seconds, I can show you something.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah. Okay, give me 5 seconds.
I'm-
Entertain the masses.
Da, 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 da. I don't know how to entertain. I've only been on YouTube and Twitch for like 10 years. I'm not very good at this. What do I do? Watch me dance, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. You can instead watch me drink some water. I'm trying to read what the background says. You can read this. I'm trying to read that back there, but I can't see it. Thanks, sponsors. Psh, who does that? Thanks, sponsors. Thanks, CWA. All right, what did you grab there? Twerk for
Can you hear
us.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool. 'Cause my Twitch was freezing, so as long as you can hear me and see me. So everyone knows that I tagged with William Saint, and we were tag team, and he actually wore the original Stevie Saint gear. However, here it is, people. The original Stevie Saint gear.
That's
still owned.
still owned. How long have you had those? And do they fit?
Yeah, because I've lost weight, so yeah. No, they'll fit.
They'll fit for a long time.
They're pleather pants, so, and it's actually funny because here's a lot of things that come full circle here. So the S on that was actually came from back because the St. Albert Saints used to be the AJHL hockey team in St. Albert. Now they moved to Spruce Grove, which ironically is like the #1 rival of the Crusaders, who is the team that I would go to watch games because Spencer works for them.
Right.
So it's pretty weird now that that team actually was like somebody that inspired my gear. And if you really want to know an even better thing about that gear, they were made by the first stripper I legally saw.
Legally saw? Like, I had to put that in there specifically.
So how's that for?
That's going to be a fun story, I think, for sure. That's one we got to make sure we do for next one. But here's another quick question for you. Did Cody Chimera ever apologize for the alcohol abuse at the Clandestine Society? And as the person who received the beer as it hit the floor and rolled to my foot and made a puddle by my feet, I am curious.
He might have. I actually don't remember. Like, I had no intentions of drinking in the ring because I will never drink before I get in the ring or during. Also, other people have to bump in that ring, so I just don't think it's proper etiquette.
Right.
However, with that being said, I was going to put it to a side and keep said beer. So I wasn't exactly happy that he wasted beer either. But however, like, another thing too, it's like he's a recovering alcoholic. So I did not plan on even having beer by him, and I did not want to have beer by him out of respect. So
I remember that audience member gave it to you, though. I remember that was an audience thing.
So, like, I never thought in a million years somebody was actually going to go and buy me a beer. So the fact that somebody did, I thought was hilarious. And yeah, no, that was pretty cool. Like, just, like, when you're able to kind of have, again, like, we're talking about the connection with the crowd. And, like, that show, like, everyone knew that, after that show, I was back to being a good guy. Because I was always a good guy, like, at the time. Like, I've been a good guy in Edmonton for a while now when you kind of think about it. So just the fact that I'm able to kind of have a good relationship with a lot of the fans, I think that allowed it. But still, I mean, the fact that, you got a beard, that really set the tone, I thought.
That was a wild show. Like, that show.
Yeah. And, like, we were the first match.
Yeah.
So, like, it's cool. So, like, I told Cody and the other guys, like, hey, like, no matter what, like, if Clandestine becomes, like, the biggest thing, just think, like, we were the very first match. And I told Cody, I'm like, we were the very first people to step in the ring at Clandestine. And nobody can take that away from us. It was pretty cool.
That's very true.
I was also the first guy to appear at a Love Wrestling show and enter the ring there, so.
Oh, for the change to the game back, the last show, you were the first match?
Well, yeah, like, I was in the Battle Royal, so I was the first wrestler that came out there. So, like, those are kind of cool little, like, things I can have now, is being the first wrestler to kind of enter in Clandestine and for Love Wrestling shows.
Are you going to be at the next? I think I saw you on that the list for the next Love Pro Wrestling show that's happening in March 23rd, 26th, one of the two.
I think it's March 25th.
25th.
Friday, March 25th. So.
Perfect. Will we be seeing you there too?
The only thing I can say is stay tuned.
Oh, all right. Perfect. All right. Well, let's finalize this last question here before we end, because we've been going for about an hour now, so it's been a nice long one. Thank you again for making this so easy. But this one's from Shout. If you and Son of Irish could wrestle any tag team in Alberta, who would it be?
So I really want to face Bryn and the Stormbringer out of Lethbridge. I think those guys are phenomenal. The Above Average Joes would be fun as well. Davey O'Doyle and Michael Allen Richard Clark.
Sask Boys.
Yeah, like, those guys would be fun. I always thought if the Voro twins came back, that would be a fun match. Cougar Meat, if we wanted to bring Colin Cutler back and pair him up with Kyle Sebastian, like I don't think a lot of people in Alberta understand how amazing and entertaining that tag team is. So, I would love to face anybody, like in everyone, to be honest, because when you kind of look at some of the best tag teams now, like when you look at WWE, for example, and you look at kind of the New Day and the Usos as kind of the top two, they have faced everyone. And that's kind of helps them kind of build their legacy. So I think the only way kind of to help kind of build us and make us a better tag team is by facing as many and every tag team possible. So if the chat wants us to face somebody specific, let your voice be heard.
There you go. I like to hear that. Yeah, everybody, we should maybe like make a poll for this, or we'll put it on Twitter for like the rest of this week. But we
Like,
love.
who does everybody else want us to see?
I want to see Dad Bod Squad, but that's a personal love of me. I love to see that kind of stuff. I want to see you guys wrestle.
Now, I got a question for you.
Personally?
I've been tag champs with one of those guys. Do you know which one?
Well, so if I'm gonna make the guess, it's probably gonna be Crowder, because I don't think I've ever spoken to Jules saying that he's had that experience with you
Now,
as a
why
tag
would you
team.
say Crowder?
Because I've spoken to Jules more, and I don't remember him saying anything about being a tag team with you. So it was
You
just an
are right.
educated guess.
You are right, but it has nothing to do with, like, we were part of the good old masks of our weapons of mass seduction.
What a great name! Alberta's had such great names for tag teams. Like holy crap! But do you guys have a specific name that you guys are going by, you and Son of Irish, or is it just Chris Parish, Son of Irish?
Like we're trying to figure one out. That and like music, but it's so easy just to use Irish's like his dad's music because why not? It's a fun song.
Yeah.
And I keep ribbing his dad's saying like, you know what? Like every time I come out to this song, I win. Like I have a better win-loss record with this music than you do. So, and it's actually funny because I said that to him. Like we had a hug after we won the titles, and he told me how jealous he was because I think like he always wanted to tag with his kid. And then I just responded by saying, I'm undefeated using your music. Why were you so bad with it? And then he just started breaking laughing. So
I got one here from Shout that I thought was pretty good. It's like, I want to see you face a reunited Colton Kelly in Thickness. That would be an awesome one, too.
So
That'd be
Thickness,
a
I think,
bloody
is
match.
someone who had a hell of amount of steam going until this pandemic came, and it really sucked because that guy was doing so much good work that I would love to have a match with him. I would love to work with him. He is not only just a great wrestler, he's an even nicer human being. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see him back post-pandemic because holy cow, he was on a roll.
His Blue Thunder Bomb was like right up there with Sami Zayn, in my opinion. Like his Blue Thunder Bomb is crazy good. But yeah, I love the Thickness. I good friends with him, just like you. It's so hard to not be good friends with everybody in this scene. Everybody's so nice. I love this scene.
Yeah.
But dude, thank you so much for today. Like this has been super awesome, super great to catch up with you again because, like I said, it's been too long. And hopefully, if I can make it up to the LPW show next month, if you're not in it, at the very least, I hope you'll be there and we can go for a few drinks. I owe you a few this time, at the very least.
I mean, when have I not gone to actually, no, that's not true. There's been a lot of wrestling shows lately where I have not had a drink. So
I'll buy you a water. We'll drink waters together because I also drink lots of water.
Screw
That's my
water.
fucking
I
water
mean,
right here. You're like, no, it'll be a beer. It'll still be a beer. Don't worry.
yeah, I know where it is, and I know that they have. I know it's on tap, so we'll be fine.
There you go. Yeah, it's at that. Where is that? It's I'm trying to take.
It's at the Rec Room.
Rec Room. Thank you. Yeah.
Southside Rec Room.
Southside Rec Room. Perfect. All right. Once again, dude, thank you so much. Before we do let you go here today, plug your stuff. Where can people find you, and where can they see your wrestles coming up?
Well, as far as watching me wrestle, you can come to Lethbridge at the and watch PPW. That's a hell of a drive, but it'll be fun. Hopefully I can win my third Power Rumble. It'll be a record. Actually, I do hold the record for the most wins at the Power Rumble, but 3 would definitely put me over the top. And it's actually for the PPW heavyweight title. So
Which is currently held by
two-time-
Kyle Sebastian, correct?
Sydney Steele.
Steele is back. Oh, that's right. He came back and took it back from Sebastian. That's
Yeah.
right. I remember
So-
this now.
So it'd be nice because he kind of stole the title from me. So it'd be kind of nice to steal the title from him. So that'll be nice. And then MRB and I will probably just tear the house down on Sunday at the Norwood Legion in Edmonton on Sunday. So make sure you check that out. I think it's a 6:30 bell time. So, it's a nice earlier show on a Sunday. So come check that out if you can. If not, check me at Twitter at Chris Parish. Check me on Instagram at chris.parish. I'm at the Chris Parish on Twitch, and I'm trying really hard to figure that stuff out. I'm kind of stupid, so it'll take me a little while. Thank you, Mike, for actually helping me out, but I still need more.
If you need anything, man, you ask me as well. I'm always here for you. That's whatever you need.
I'm just a dunce cap when it comes to this stuff. So
Hey, at least that's why that's why they keep you inside the ring, right? That's where you shine.
yeah, it's definitely not in front of a computer.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's fine.
No,
But
not.
dude, thank you again for being here today. I will send you a message here shortly, but I will disconnect the call. But before you go, is there anything else you wanted to say to everybody?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on, and if you ever want to do a part 2, hells yeah. So thank you, everyone, and just help support that local wrestling, because I think we're in a position where we're going to really rise in 2022.
A big thank you once again to Chris Parish for joining me here today. Like I said, it's such an awesome guy. He's been around for such a long time, and I just love him to death. Like I said, a personal great friend of mine. So it was really special for me to be able to bring you this episode today with Chris Parish and hear his crazy stories and all his amazing stories that have happened over the course of multiple years here in Alberta. So anyways, yeah, don't forget to check out his social medias. All the information will be listed below. If you liked what you heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Leave a comment down below with anybody that you would like to see interviewed here who is a part of the Canadian wrestling scene. And until next Tuesday, I will bid you adieu. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.